Hmm. Hmm.
Right, okay then, Maui, what's
Yeah,
your bad point?
mine is the obvious result that is probably the most shocking of all of the ESL Pro League group stage, which is Cloud9 not making it through to the playoffs. And the way I frame it is just that they have simply regressed. They are literally worse than when they were playing
Okay.
with
You've
Buster at
simply
Cologne.
regressed. Yeah, come on, hit me.
Yeah, they're literally worse right now than they were playing when Buster was slotted in for Axile as a stand-in. Even though Buster wasn't even practicing, he wasn't even playing Counter Strike. But what I saw from them in this group stage was just abhorrent. The way that losing to Complexity, I wanted to give it at first to be credit to Complexity, but then Cloud9 lose
I
to
hadn't thought of
Liquid.
that. That's the sort of fucked up world space Maui has to live as an NA fan. Like, on the one hand, he's like, this was a really bad sign for Cloud9, but wait a minute. For now, I'll choose to believe it's just really good for Complexity, actually. Like,
Yeah.
my God. Okay, go on.
Gotta find some angle
I
no matter
know,
what.
come on.
But then they play Liquid and they lose that game. And the maps that they lost to me felt fairly convincing. And then they lose to Eternal Fire pretty badly, and they already had beaten Eternal Fire already to kick off the group. Like this Cloud9 team right now has so many problems. Okay, and I know that what people want me to address is was kicking Nafany the wrong move? I don't think so. I still do not think that was. I am still standing behind the fact that I think that Nafany was not the right leader for them. That being said, the way that he's calling for Bet Boom is different enough from how Cloud9 play that I have to start to believe that there's a couple things that could be going on here. But first and foremost, I think Groove has to be on the hot seat immediately. I do think that the way that Electronic was calling with Navi versus how he's calling with Cloud9 is kind of a meld. It's not exactly the same as either team was playing before. So we're getting this kind of hybrid style of how Cloud9 and Groove wanted to play the game and how Electronic was playing under Blade. So I don't think it's necessarily like I think the style has actually in some ways improved, but I just see that individuals and fundamentals have regressed on top of that. By that I mean Cloud9, I think through the group stage had the fourth worst trading of any team, and you would see this team pop into bomb sites, and it's like this is a set piece, and one guy is 10 feet in front of his teammate. You're seeing players die so far away from each other on this roster that it's like, how did they even dry run these strategies? And this is kind of what I actually remember from the old Cloud9 2, where their execs were probably the weakest part of their game overall, even though I thought the defaulting style that they used before was also quite bad. But I'll say that the defaulting now, it's actually serving a pretty conscious purpose. I'm seeing players get slotted into nice positions, but then I feel like it's resembling 2016 SK, like when Fallen was trying to set up, say, like Fur or even Cold sometimes to get into like a nifty spot and then try to move the rest of the attack and just leave that guy there forever. I'm starting to see them do that with Hobbit. So Hobbit's been this guy that they're trying to set up into a few of these positions, like mid on Ancient. He's trying to get him into top mid all the time, and Hobbit is just not equipped to do that. Like, Hobbit is he's just not a great player at taking that kind of space, and it's led to Hobbit suffering in some of his positions on T side, and I'm not going to give Hobbit a complete pass because he still has a lot of his same CT spots. So the CT side, the way that he's gotten worse on CT side is just his fault. Like he's some reason just bad now on some of those, but I will say, like, when rounds break down for Cloud9 before, they were so good at playing off of each other. When Nafany was calling, yes, but I think there was just kind of the cohesion that this team had built up over playing with each other through so many online officials. That has been lost. They are not the same team in 3v3 situations that they were once before, and I think that has to do with probably conflicting styles and calling between Electronic Perfecto and the other three core members of Cloud9. So there's a lot of things to pick at for why Cloud9 have gotten worse, but the overall bad point is that they obviously are worse now than they were even 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think the thing it kind of seemed like at the end of Nafany's tenure, at least, like Groove did the interview right this week where he was like, we've got a lot of voices in the team, and I think that was always an issue for Nafany as well. Kind of like he said, I think he also said like he doesn't feel like the smartest player on the team. Like it felt like it was more like a leadership committee than Nafany's team by the end of it. It kind of felt like Shiro, Hobbit, Groove, Nafany, like all could say something, and it was kind of like in the air who had the final say. And I think maybe they've kept a lot of, even though Nafany's gone, like they've kept a lot of the leadership structure, and that's why we see a lot of the same style. Like not completely. It doesn't feel like Electronics fully got the keys to play his own way. And I think keeping Groove, keeping Hobbit, like those are kind of the moves where you kind of see they are kind of trying to keep a bit of their old identity. And like that makes sense for team play reasons and things like that. But I do think they're suffering from like just conflicts in terms of identity and things like that. And also Axile's form is really troubling as well. And it's after what Bit played like under Electronic. Maybe this is a little bit connected. I don't know if that's a stretch, but it's kind of a little bit worrying where Axile's kind of had this drop off where he's not the phase smashing Axile anymore. And he is like Hobbit, like they've not, like I did an article on the new Cloud9 because the roles like on like literal positions are exactly the same for all of them. Like that it's the in-game role that's changing, not like the literal spot on the map. And I think that's what we're seeing with Axile and Hobbit is that they're playing all the same positions, but they're having to play them a little bit differently, and it's just throwing them off quite a lot. And I think Hobbit especially, like his individual form speaks a lot to like the things you were saying, like the bad spacing as well. Like it's often is him left on an island because of that. And yeah, it just isn't the super team we all maybe thought it might be.
Yeah, the obvious first problem is, like, you can just see on the stats, like, Axile has just never been the Axile he was before thus far in this lineup, so that already is very alarming. It's also why, unfortunately, it is always so tricky, specifically with IGLs, when you, like, give them like, oh, this is the pros and these are the cons, because sometimes what you think are actually like the pro is like working this way. Maybe that actually was tied into what they did. Like everyone essentially assumed with this team that like, oh, Nafani is a bad caller, therefore like he's only bringing a negative effect. So if you replace him, like you already get to keep Shiro and Axile stay exactly the level they're at, and if anything, things just improve. And it's like, for all we know, being as it looks like a complete clusterfuck of like who actually did do what. Notice how the one thing they're not doing in any of these interviews is ever clarifying Nero. They just make it more confusing. Like they don't ever just come out and go, by the way, here's what Nafani actually did in his style, and here's whether or not we've kept it or updated it, or whether even one person is the IGL. Like they've never even confirmed ever was he the one IGL. Like they just give a different set of answers for every interview, as far as I can tell. So the really annoying thing is, for all we know, maybe Axile actually, maybe some of Nafani's styling of calling helped him. Maybe that was actually calling to things he liked in the game, or the timings he liked. Like I can tell you right now, one thing I had to learn from sports, which I think a lot of fans get lost on, is the easiest person to be popular with fans is the coach who is like popular with the players. But sometimes those are terrible coaches. Sometimes they just give the player everything they want, or they give the player like what they shouldn't want, essentially. Like they give you a freedom that maybe fucks up your game or limits it or makes you too one-dimensional. So my obvious concern immediately is, and this was always my concern when they made this a super team, is I never actually considered electronic IGLing part of any super team. Like it's on paper these names would be a super team. First of all, like Axile's never showed up the way he did before, so there's a massive concern. Hobbit's only gotten worse. Electronic's just all right. I mean, even he's not, it's not like he's had some lease on life. He's just all right again. It's actually not that dissimilar to Na'Vi. He has a map that's good, he has a map that's bad, and then you go, well, he's just the IGL, isn't he? Like, and so it's like people don't know. Are they judging him on his fragging? Are they judging him on his IGLing? So quite frankly, if you look at it, if you took all the nameplates off, whoever the IGL of this team is hasn't done a good job. Like, you just look at the way the team plays. By the way, this team cannot win a close fucking game to save their lives. Like, this is one of those squads where, like, the joke is they lose, it's like complex, they lose all the time, fucking 16-14, 16-13. So that's a really disturbing sign to me right there. So the difference is, unlike the Na'Vi one at the beginning of the episode, where there's all these reasons I could give it, like, tons of time, why would I give this team more time? Like, the real problem, in my opinion, when you've got an actual super team of players is, once you figure out it's not working, you should actually pretty quickly switch up. Like, because the pieces imply you could like retool this job. Like, to me, the saddest thing about this will be if they waste like another 6 months and just decide like, no matter what, Electronic must be awesome as the IGL and we're not going to change any players. Like, if I were them, if anything, I would be looking already and think like, maybe in 2-3 months, one player move, whatever it might be. Maybe it's an IGL comes in, maybe it's someone to replace Hobbit. You choose what it is, but I would be thinking about a player move because the rest of the lineup is too good. These pieces are way too good to be this bad. And the sad thing is, if you actually look at the placings, these are basically the placings that Nafani Cloud9 got, isn't it? So right now, I have to say, you have to give it, like, this move would get, it's like a D. It's not the worst, but it hasn't worked. And you certainly haven't gotten what you hoped of it. And the joke is, you don't even have bloody Nafani to blame anymore. Now you actually have to blame other people. And that's fucking everyone up, isn't it? It's not that nice a feeling anymore when we have to blame other people, including potentially maybe the stars themselves. Like, I'll tell you what, mate, there was a series the other day where Shiro played like absolute dog shit. And when I was watching it, I was like, bro, You can't blame Nafani for that. He's not in your fucking ear telling you when to peak or not. Like, that's just you, mate. You just have to live with that one. So the actual real joke of it all is, if anything, welcome to the real world, Cloud9 players. You will actually now get scrutinised. You had one guy shielded you from that for like a fucking 6-9 months or something. So it's going to be hard sledding from here, as we say in English. So I think that's a good one to put as a bad point, because I can't see any upside to that, mate. The saddest thing about their one is, like I said about the Na'Vi one, the positive for Na'Vi is, like I said, they've never even had a game where it all came together. Even when it does come together on Cloud9, they don't actually look that great. Like, the saddest thing is, like I said, if I took the nameplates off, would anyone actually know this was a super team? I don't know that you would. I don't know that you would, quite frankly. I think I could trick a lot of you.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.